Hi everyone, my name's Ben. Welcome to my channel, Ben Reads Good. So, I hope you're all doing really well on this late October day. The weather is incredibly changeable here in Bristol. It's quite sunny now, but earlier I went for a run about 30 seconds after I got home. The heavens opened and it was one of the biggest downpours I've seen in a while, so I narrowly escaped looking like a drowned cat. I really love this season though. I know many readers do. It's a nice time to hunker down with a blanket or two, get through a book. For me, I just love dusting off the knitwear. It's a chance for me to bang out one of my favourites. 65% acrylic, not even the whiff of a sheep in this garment. But yeah, it's a lovely, lovely time of year. The clocks have also just gone back, so we got an extra hour's sleep, which was lovely. What I wanted to talk about today was a book haul. So I was feeling quite hungover yesterday. And when I'm hungover, I like to buy a book. And sometimes when I buy a book, I like to buy 6 books. So that's what I did. I headed into town to a shop in Bristol called the Last Bookshop, which is, I think, a shop that must take in like unsold stock from other shops or unsold copies of books from publishers, and they sell every single book for £4. It used to be £3, so it was even more of a bargain. But you know, inflation is out of control right now, so they've recently put their prices up to £4. That makes it pretty dangerous. And so I went there yesterday, picked up a whole bunch of books. Could have picked up more, but I managed to hold it in because I do have limited shelf space at the moment. I just wanted to tell you all about them. So here are the books, no spoilers just yet. But let's start off with this book by Becky Chambers called The Galaxy and the Ground Within. Hold on, I've left the stickers on. Give me a second. We're de-stickered. Look at all those £4. We're back in business. Back to Becky. Galaxy and the Ground Within is a sci-fi novel by Becky Chambers. It's part of her Wayfarers series. It's actually the 4th and final book. I think Becky Chambers has won the Hugo Award for at least one of the books in this series, which is always a good sign. I know N.K. Jemisin won the Hugo Award for all 3 of her books in the Broken Earth trilogy, and I absolutely loved that series. I do have the first one, which is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I haven't actually read that yet, and I don't have the 2nd or 3rd books, but I spotted this. I'm pretty confident I'm going to like the series. The only thing I've read by Becky Chambers before was her short novella, To Be Taught If Fortunate, and I thought that was just fantastic. It's a really quick read, but it's so grounded in like realistic, believable science, and I love that in a sci-fi book. It feels as well thought through as Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem, which I really devoured, and I absolutely loved that series. So really excited to read that. I'm not going to read the synopsis for this because I feel like it may contain spoilers. High hopes for this one. The next book I found is one called Preparation for the Next Life by Atticus Lish. Atticus Lish is an American author who is pretty well regarded. He writes literary fiction. He's had a book out this year called The War for Gloria, and I heard him talk about that on the BBC Open Book podcast a couple of months ago, and he just sounds like a really intelligent, switched on guy, and I'm really interested to read what he's got to say, in this case, about New York. So I'll read the synopsis. Underpaid and overworked, illegal immigrant Zhao Li survives by taking odd jobs in Chinese restaurants in the underbelly of New York, sleeping on a blackened mattress in an overcrowded boarding house. Brad Skinner, traumatized and volatile, his psyche ravaged by 3 tours in Iraq, hitchhikes to the city, hoping to exorcise his demons. Meeting in the margins of Queens, each finds something they long for in the other, and their unlikely love story becomes the heart of one of the most powerful and widely acclaimed novels in years. He's got a lot of good reviews. They only include the good ones on the back, but from, I guess, publications that I trust. So he's got stuff from The Observer, The Guardian, Ned Bowman has given it a nice thumbs up. I also quite like that it's split into sections, and each section has like this fully black printed page. And what that means is you can just kind of see where the section breaks are by looking at the side of the book, which I kind of love. It's a bit of a chunkster though. It's a big old book. Maybe the pages are just thick because this is only 420 pages or so. So looks can be deceiving. The next book I picked up, I've been eyeing up in bookshops for quite a while actually. It's by Benjamin Myers and it's called Pig Iron. Now, you might have heard of Benjamin Myers because I think his most well-known book is one I also own called The Gallows Pole, but I haven't read this one yet. I picked this one up when I went to Mr. B's Emporium of Reading Delights a couple of years ago now to do a reading spa, which is this service they offer where you sit down with one of their booksellers and you talk about your likes and dislikes when it comes to reading, and they sort of dash off into the shop, pick a bunch of books that they think fit your taste, and then you have a chat about them and take away a stack of about 6. This was one of the ones I was recommended because the language was supposed to be really sort of beautifully written. I haven't read that one, but what I have read is Benjamin Myers' book from this year called The Perfect Golden Circle. And like a lot of his other books, it touches on themes of masculine friendships. And this one's about 2 guys, Redbone and Calvert, who are embarking on a bit of a summer tour of landscapes around the UK, creating ever more elaborate crop circle designs. And there's a bit of a fuss building up in the UK. I think that actually happened. These characters are fictional, but there was a big hysteria over crop circles in one of the very hot summers of the 80s. Benjamin Myers is a wonderful author, writes about the landscape and especially the North and male friendships really sort of insightfully and beautifully. Pig Iron, though, is the one that I picked up. This is, I think it's about travellers, but I'll read you the synopsis. John wants to escape his past, but the legacy of brutality left by his boxer father, king of the gypsies, Mac Wisdom, overshadows his life. His new job as an ice cream man should offer freedom, but instead pulls him into the dark recesses of a northern town just outside Durham, where his family name is Mud. When John attempts to trade prejudice and parole officers for the solace of the rural landscape, Mac's bloody downfall threatens his very survival. So I guess the ice cream truck explains the ice cream on the front, and yeah, that screams Benjamin Myers' typical themes of the North, the landscape, masculinity. Very interested to read this one. And I've just noticed actually that the spines on these, they're like these high contrast lines and they look pretty cool together. So hopefully if I like that one, I'll seek out another with a similar spine and they can all sit together on the shelf. The 4th book I picked up is one I've seen quite a lot of on YouTube lately, and that is Maggie O'Farrell's Instructions for a Heatwave. To my shame, I've not actually read any Maggie O'Farrell, although I do have Hamnet in the other room. People were reading this one during the very hot period this summer in the UK because, you know, hot weather, hot book. Maybe some people thought it was an instruction manual, probably sorely disappointed. This one is set in the heatwave that was, I guess, mentioned as a comparison point to this summer's one, the 1976 Heatwave, where things got very hot, but clearly not quite as hot because records were shattered, and they were shattered everywhere in 2022. So, it's July 1976, and London is in the grip of a heatwave. It hasn't rained for months, the gardens are filled with aphids, water comes from a standpipe, and Robert Riordan tells his wife Greta that he's going round the corner to buy a newspaper. He doesn't come back. The search for Robert brings Greta's children, 2 estranged sisters and a brother on the brink of divorce, back home, each with different ideas as to where their father may have gone. None of them suspects that their mother might have an explanation that even now she cannot share. Sounds very juicy. I did not expect, I guess, the level of intrigue, mystery, the mysterious thriller vibes that's given me. Apparently it was shortlisted for the Costa Novel Award, so that, I guess, suggests it's quite a propulsive, easy reading book, which I could do with at some point. Probably not in the winter though. I'm buying this out of season, and we love a book that is very seasonally aligned. So maybe I'll save this one for summer. I've got a few on the shelf that I do want to read when it's nice and warm and sunny. Maybe one for a holiday. Next up, and this is the penultimate book, is from an author called Margot Livesey, and it's called The Boy in the Field. Now, I hadn't really heard of Margot Livesey until recently. I was reading an interview with Barbara Kingsolver in The Guardian because she's got a new release out called Demon Copperhead, and she reeled off this list of authors in answer to one of the questions, and it was like Richard Powers and Amor Towles and a few other people that I really like, and Margot Livesey was mentioned as part of that list, and I'd never heard of her. So I was actually sort of picking this book up and having a browse of it in Waterstones just the other day. So when I saw this on the shelf, my arm just reached up and snatched it down because I'm really interested in reading some of her works. I think she's been an author for quite a long time and has got quite a lot of books. This is her most recent one from 2020, but she's been writing for decades. I am a little bit disappointed in the quality of the print here. I wish this white border was all the way around the edge, but I guess when I'm reading it, I'm not the one looking at it, you are, so I'll get over it. So, synopsis. Oxford, 1999. Teenagers Matthew, Zoe and Duncan Lang are walking home from school when they discover a boy lying in a field, bloody and unconscious. Thanks to their intervention, the boy's life is saved. In the aftermath, all 3 siblings are irrevocably changed. Matthew, the oldest, becomes obsessed with tracking down the assailant, secretly searching the local town with the victim's brother. Zoe wanders the streets of Oxford looking at men, and one of them, a visiting American graduate student, looks back. Duncan, the youngest, who has seldom thought about being adopted, suddenly decides he wants to find his birth mother. Overshadowing all 3 is the awareness that something is amiss in their parents' marriage. I love a family drama, so I am looking forward to reading this, and it seems like quite a short, sharp little novel. The fields on the front are giving autumn colours, so maybe this is one that I'll tackle relatively soon. Finally, I picked up a book that I already have a copy of, which I know is very bad and wasteful, but it's a hardback and it's a book I really like, so I decided why not. This is a book called Weather by Jenny Offill. It was published a couple of years ago now. It's a very short book made up of lots of vignettes, which I've heard a bit about Jenny Offill's process. It takes a really long time. I think it was about 10 years between her previous book, The Department of Speculation, and this one. But apparently she writes out all of these vignettes separately and then arranges them into the way that best suits and serves the story, which is really cool. I love a little insight into an artistic process. And I think this cover is just very, very cool. This was another one I got as part of my Mr. B's reading spa, and they were spot on with this because it made me laugh. It touched on stuff that I really care about, and I just loved it all round. And I think the cover is better than the paperback, which I may now be able to gift to someone, or I don't know if this has sentimental value because I got it as part of the reading spa and it's technically a gift. I'll have a think. I'm not against 2 copies of the same book, but you know. So this book is about a lady who works in a library who takes on a second job answering the emails for a climate change podcast. Let me just read you the synopsis. Lizzie Benson slid into her job as a librarian without a traditional degree, but this gives her a vantage point from which to practice her other calling as an unofficial shrink. For years, she has supported her God-haunted mother and her recovering addict brother. They have both stabilised for the moment, but then her old mentor, Sylvia Liller, makes a proposal. Sylvia has become famous for her prescient podcast, Hell and High Water, and wants to hire Lizzie to answer the mail she receives. From left-wingers worried about climate change and right-wingers worried about the decline of Western civilization. As Lizzie dives into this polarised world, she begins to wonder what it means to keep tending your own garden once you've seen the flames beyond its walls. And all the while, the voices of the city keep floating in, funny, disturbing, and increasingly mad. I thought this was an absolute blast, so I'd highly recommend giving it a read if you haven't already. Lots of gallows humour of the climate change variety. So those are the 6 books I bought yesterday, all for the bargain price of £24. I feel like a bit of a thief. Such a bargain. Like, I think the list price of these would be like £60. That's crazy. And it was full of many more good titles. So if you live in Bristol or have access to Bristol easily, I would recommend heading over to the Last Bookshop where you can snag yourself a bargain. Until next time, keep on reading. Bye.